we will be recording the session, so just to be aware of that, but that will help us to share that with any student who was unable to join today. I would also like to welcome 4 students who did the program last year and who have willingly participated today to share their experience. So Brittany, Tristan, Auguste, and also Thomas. You will hear from them later on. So thanks again for joining today. And I will be starting by just providing you an introduction of the program, some lessons learned, and then you will hear from the students who did the program last year. If throughout the presentation you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can put any comments or questions you have in the chat as well. You can do that throughout the presentation, or there will be a lot of time at the end as well. So why would I recommend doing a global internship? And there's lots of benefits like doing a local internship, but if you do a global internship, it will allow you to develop your career, expand your resume, and also gain a global perspective in your field. And it doesn't matter if you're studying marketing, law, international business, politics, policy, or any other field you're currently studying. So you could get a global perspective on your field of study. And also you can experience a new culture and also possibly learn a new language, or maybe you have learned a language as part of your studies at university so far, or maybe also in high school, and you want to intensify that language skills a bit further. It also will allow you to do professional connections with your peers, but also other students in the program, people overseas in the country, industry partners, or any other one you will have the opportunity to meet as part of the program. And also it will allow you to create international network of friends and be more confident and independent as well. And I think that's some of the key attributes employers look for people who finish their studies and are graduating, especially if you're towards the end of your degree. That's, I think, some of the key aspects you can learn. And we will hear later from some of the students who did the program last year about their experience and what they thought about the experience. And so why Asia? So this program, as you would know, focuses on the Asia Pacific region. And Asia is very important. Firstly, Australia is located in Asia. So it's our closest neighbor. It's the region we are belonging to. And as you can see on the graph comparing 2016 economic growth to 2030, you can see that in Asia, that's where the countries are with the largest growth, for example, China, India, Indonesia, Japan. And we can see on the left side as well, for example, Australia, where you can see the growth will be very minimal over that 15 years period, whereas, for example, Japan or India are growing significantly. And also in Asia, while 30 years ago, a large majority of population have lived on the poverty levels, and these people are now in the middle class. Also, Asia has one of the youngest population globally, and it's a very digitally connected region. So that's all some of the key aspects why Asia is so important to Australia, and also for your careers in future. Doesn't matter if that's in Australia, or maybe you envision yourself working in Asia or working somewhere else in the world. And so now I'm just providing a quick introduction about the Griffith Asia Business Internship Program. Just a quick overview how the program has developed over the last few years, before I then will go into more details about the different aspects of the course. So the program has been growing steadily from 12 students in 2014 to 52 students in 2019. And last year, for the first time, we offered a remote global work integrated learning experience because of COVID, some restriction in regards to travel. And you will be hearing more about that option as well, which is available this year as well. For 2021, we have 7 Asian destinations on offer, including China, Fiji, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And Fiji is a new destination for this year, which I feel very excited about, because it's great to have the Pacific included as well. And the Pacific is very close to Queensland in regards to people-to-people linkages, economic development, and other key aspects. And also the program has been increasing in regards to the involvement of international and master students in the program. And we're aiming normally for around 15% of master or international students. And last year, we actually had a higher number of that in the program, which is fantastic to see. So if you're an international student or a master student, this program is also for you. And also there's a new option for international students to do an internship back home. For example, last year we had a few students who were Korean, and they did their internship in Korea remotely with a Korean company. And so that's an option if the destination you're coming from is as part of this program. You can use that option as well to do the internship back home, which might be useful if you're trying to go back to your home country after finishing your studies in Australia. And just a quick introduction to 2021. As I said, there will be 7 different destinations. We will be offering a remote program, and I will highlight a bit more how that specifically functions. We're also hoping that there might be some in-country travel later in the year or early next year in trimester 3. But at the moment, the Griffith University has suspended all outgoing mobility, and all programs will be reviewed prior to travel overseas in regards to health and safety, insurance coverage, and other aspects. So that's something to keep in mind. The program will definitely go ahead as a remote version and possibly in country, depending on how the travel ban by the Australian government and the university policy is moving forward within the year. It's a bit early to tell at this stage. There's hopefully more clarity on that in mid-year. We also have significant amount of new Colombo Plan funding available. Close to 80 grants this year. So this is really fantastic, and I will be talking about that a bit more detailed. There will be also grants available for international and master students. And as I already mentioned, there's an option to do the internship back home if you're an international student and your home country is included in one of the destinations. And before we get into the details of the program, I just give you 1 minute to quickly read 2 of the quotes from students who did the remote global internship late last year. And as I said, we will later on also hear from 4 students quickly sharing their experience in the program. But I'll just give you a minute or so to read that 2 testimonials. I hope that provided you some idea about what are some of the experience of students who did the program before. And we can see one was a bachelor student, the other one a master student who had already worked for several years in various positions. So the program has been very useful based in the past of people who never worked before, and even people who have been working for 20 or 30 years in a profession. And now I would like to just starting to provide a bit more detail about the program. So who is the Griffith Asia Institute? What are the prerequisites of the program? What are the destination, budget and grants, the timeline of the program, applications, assessment, and then we hear from our global ambassadors who did the program last year. So the Griffith Asia Institute is leading this program, and the director of the Griffith Asia Institute is Professor Caitlin Byrne. And you would meet her as part of this program. She will be involved in some of the Asia Ready program and in some of the other sessions as well. And she has been engaged in the Asia Pacific region for a long, long time. And also you will be closely working with myself. I'm the course convener of the Griffith Asia Business Internship Program. And then you will be also working with the WIL coordinator for some of the logistical aspects of the program. And I just included 2 pictures of myself here, and these pictures are from around 15 years ago. And that was actually when I did a students exchange in Korea, in Seoul, at Sukmyeon Women's University. And I did some Korean language training and also some Taekwondo. And that experience when I went to Korea around 15 years ago was actually one of the first times I went to Asia, and which kind of created my interest in Asia and an area I have been working on since then in the last 10 years. So you never know where a global internship or, you know, an overseas exchange will bring you in the future. So it's a very valuable experience. So the course overview, the program is available for all undergrad and postgrad students. Most of the students we're getting are from the business school, but if you're in science or if you are in other areas, you're also more than welcome to join the program. Also keeping in mind that most internships have a business focus. The program was run every year in trimester 3. And it's important, it's a 20 credit point elective course. So it's important that as part of your degree, you have a 20 credit point elective course available. For example, for undergrad students, it's 3003 GPS. And for master students, it's 7007 GPS. And also the program includes an Asia Ready program at the beginning. And the Asia Ready program just prepares you for your experience with Asia, because some of you might have already traveled to Asia before or have studied 1 or 2 subjects in regards to Asia. But more often we get students who have never engaged much with Asia beforehand. So there's a solid preparation for you before going on your experience doing the internship, either remotely or in country if possible. It's an on-the-job experience because you will be working in an internship full-time or a part-time equivalent over several weeks. As I already mentioned, there's funding available for Australian undergrad students and also for master and international students, but I will mention that in more detail prior. There are some prerequisites for this course, so you cannot just wait until trimester 3 and enroll in the course. There's a process involved of that. And it's important that you have around 160 credit points completed of your degree. So most of you would have done, maybe you're in year 2 or year 3 of your degree if you do a standard bachelor, or maybe you're in year 4 or 5 if you do a double degree as well. So normally students should have finished around 160 credit points by the end of trimester 2. And if you're a postgrad study, normally we say around halfway through your degree. But there's some flexibility here as well. For example, if you only have finished 150 credit points, I would still highly recommend you to apply for the program. An overall minimum GPA of 4.5 is required. And we're looking normally at the transcript from the end of T3. But for example, if you feel like after T1, you would be better and you will reach the GPA, you're also encouraged to apply, because then we can review your GPA a bit later on as well. As part of the process, you would be also doing an interview with the Griffith Asia Institute. That would be predominantly with myself, just to get an idea why you're interested in the program, what destination or company you're interested in. And then normally there's also a process of match and interview with the host organization as well. And also just to make sure that the internships are not paid. So it's an unpaid internship. So destinations this year, we have 7 different countries available. China, we have Shanghai and Beijing. Suva in Fiji, as I mentioned, is a new destination in the Pacific. So that's really exciting. We have Hong Kong, which is always popular. Jakarta in Indonesia, Tokyo in Japan, Seoul in Korea, and also Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, which was new for this year, for last year. And so we will be running it the 2nd year, and it had a good interest as well. And I always want to promote Japan. We have a lot of grants available or spots for Japan this year. So if you're interested in Japan, that's definitely a destination I would recommend you to put in as part of your preferences. Just as a spotlight again, so for the 2021 program, we have 7 countries, close to 80 new Colombo Plan grants, and we're aiming maybe for around 90 placements, depending on how many students application we get and how the application process goes. So always I get asked, so what companies can I do an internship with? And for example, these are just some examples of 2019 and 2020 host organizations. And they vary a bit from country to country, but I think that just provides you a quick overview. For example, in China, we have worked with the Australian Chamber of Commerce, also the American Chamber of Commerce. In Hong Kong, we have quite a few placements in the financial area, such as Odyssey. We have also worked with Fred Hollows Foundation, Crossroad Foundations, which we will hear later on, hopefully a bit more about. but also with some of the hotels in Hong Kong. In Indonesia, we had microfinance, we had a consulting company, but also, for example, the Global Green Growth Institute and Trade Investment Queensland. In Japan, we have worked with Dale Carnegie, DigiTrade, Startup Lady, which is a non-for-profit organization, and also some hotels. Similarly, in Korea, we're working with ANZ, Trade Investment Queensland, the Australian Chamber of Commerce, and a few other companies as well. And similar in Malaysia, we had some placements in tourism, but also in trade investment, and also in consultancy companies as well. And every year, some of our host organizations change depending on what students we have and what are your interests and where you want to do your placement. And similar, some companies, they decide to work with us for several years, and others maybe have a break. But normally we're working very much with similar companies throughout the different destinations and also across the different years, because they value the benefits of having an intern. So I just wanted to highlight a bit more about the remote global internship. So there's the option going in country in case the travel ban allows it and university policies can satisfy the health and safety of students. But there will be definitely available a remote global internship. And that works that you do the internship with the company overseas. So your supervisor will be overseas and your work colleagues, and you will be working from the comfort of your home. And that's normally approximately 40 hours per week over 6 weeks in November, December. Or if you want to do it part-time because you might have other work commitments here or you're doing other studies, could also be over November till January. And that will also include an Asia Ready program to prepare you for your internship and provide an overview of what Asia is about. And there will be a cultural program. We had, for example, online cooking classes, some online language classes, and also several industry partner events. So you will get a thorough understanding of the Asia Pacific region. As part of the course, often that's forgotten, there will be still some assessments to do, but I would highlight that a bit later on. But there's definitely assessments as part of this course, mainly to allow you to reflect on your experience and also do a presentation on this. And some of the pictures I've include some of the students who joined the program remotely last year. In regards to the cost of the program, so for the remote global internship, so the one you would be working from your home with a company overseas, it's the 20 credit point Griffith tuition fees. And then depending on the location of the destination, there's a third-party provider service fee included that normally varies between $1,500 and $2,500. And then also expenses for your home office, such as stationery, internet access, and electricity. Having said that, there's also funding available, New Colombo Plan funding, and there's available up to $2,500 for eligible Australian undergrad students. And this funding, you don't need to apply separate for it. We have the funding and allocate that to students who have been successful in the application process for this program. So we already received the grants from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and we would then distribute it to the most suitable students who applied for the program. For master and international students, there's grants of up to $500 available for the remote option. And just quickly, in case there's an in-country option available this year, and as I said, that wouldn't be clearer until mid-year, you still have the course tuition fees. There would be additional costs for passport, visa, vaccinations, return flight, accommodation. There's also third-party provider fee, and then the daily expenses you would have overseas as you have here, food, local transport, laundry, communication charges, and other spending. There's also grants available. There's New Colombo Plan funding available, again, for Australian undergrads. We have up to $3,000 available, and there is $1,300 for eligible master and international students available as well. If you're an Australian student, you might also have access to OS Help and Centrelink, but these options are only available for the in-country part. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not yet clear if in trimester 3 there's any opportunity to travel overseas. But as I mentioned before, the remote program will definitely go ahead, and we will be hearing from some of the students who did the remote program last trimester. So just quickly, maybe one more point before I hand over to some of the students joining me today. So often I get asked, so how should I select my destination preferences? Because as part of your application, you would need to highlight your top 3 destinations. And I often say, you know, it really depends on what you want to get out of the program and what are your interests. And you might consider, you know, as I mentioned, language skills. Are you learning a language at Griffith currently, or maybe you learned a language at high school, or you know, you have a migration background and want to kind of link back to your heritage or personal ties. So that might be a really good indication for selection of a country. If you have any specific cultural interests, maybe you're interested in a certain religion or a certain political system, or, you know, or history of a country. So that might be something else you can then use as a guidance to what you should apply for. Also think about the finances and grants available. As I mentioned, we have quite a lot of grants available for Japan this year. And Japan is always a popular destination. Similar, there's quite a few grants available for Hong Kong, as well as Korea as well. Having said that, all the other destinations have also grants available, but Japan this year has more grants available than, for example, in previous years. And also think about the focus of your internship experience. While we can provide most companies or industries in all the countries, some countries are maybe better known for certain areas than others. For example, Fiji would be quite well known for their sustainable tourism, but also for climate change, sustainability in general, also maybe in the hotel sector, versus, for example, Hong Kong is quite known for their financial hub and their financial center. And so that gives you, and maybe Indonesia often can be used for some people who are interested in non-for-profit organizations, but also in a quickly developing country with the new free trade agreement between Australia and Indonesia coming up last year. So there's lots of opportunities there as well. And China as well, it's one of our most important partners for Australia in a bilateral relationship. So that's just some of the ideas how to think about what might be a suitable destination, or some of the preferences for you to select as part of your application process. And just another quick point on the timeline of the application. So the student registration will be online through a web page. I will be sharing the link with everyone who has registered for today. Applications open 1st of April and they go until the 31st of May. And as I mentioned, as part of the application, you would need to select your first 3 preferences for a destination. And you would also need to provide a cover letter, resume, and an unofficial transcript. Then there will be the interviews, as I mentioned, in around June this year. If you then get selected into the program, there's a $500 non-refundable deposit, but that will go towards the cost, or if you get a grant, that will be then offset by the grant you received. And then normally the matching process between yourself and the host organization is in July to September. And then the program officially starts in early November with the Asia Ready program, country orientation, and then the internship period. So normally early November to just before Christmas, full-time, or if you do it remotely, there's a part-time option available as well. But you heard a lot from me now, so I would like to hand over to some of our global ambassadors who did the same program, the remote global internship last year, and they would like to share some of their experiences with you. And later you also have the opportunity to ask them any questions you have. And you can also ask me any questions, definitely. But maybe, Auguste, would you mind going first and sharing some of your experience doing your internship with Crossroad in Hong Kong?
Sure. Let me just turn on my camera so hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Auguste Lamitsa. I'm doing a Master of Global Development online, and so I'm based here in Samoa. So it's actually exciting for me now that Fiji has been added as one of the destinations for this year's internship. So I did my internship with Crossroads Foundation, which is an international nonprofit organization in Hong Kong. I worked with the global distribution team. So a brief background on Crossroads. So basically they do a number of programs with different non-government organizations in their partner countries. And so with the global distribution team, they basically get donations of like clothes, chairs, furniture, fridge, medical supplies from different business partners, donors all over the country, and especially in Hong Kong. And so they put these together, and through an application process, they then ship it out to the NGOs for them to distribute to their beneficiaries and partners in country. So I worked with the global distribution team to sort of look at how to better understand and communicate the value of their shipments with their recipient organizations in the countries, and as well as standardizing their shipping reporting methodology. So this, I was handed this specific task because of my work experience. I currently work as a program associate for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations Sub-Regional Office here in Pacific. So I work a lot around development projects. So my experience in monitoring and evaluation and project proposal formulation kind of linked me to this work with my internship. So my work was mainly looking at calculating the number of direct and indirect beneficiaries with the shipments that were done, and also looking at analyzing the outcomes and impacts of shipments to sort of revamp Crossroads reporting back to their donors and partners who donated the goods that were then shipped out to their recipient organizations. This internship was a very heartwarming and enlightening experience because I got to see through the impact assessment form sent in from the recipient organizations, the NGOs that they worked with, and I got to look at the videos of the beneficiary receiving the goods, and to be given the opportunity to sort of contribute to Crossroads' global act of goodwill from miles away, even by half an inch, just by looking at analyzing the impacts and outcomes, is an experience I will proudly share with anybody I cross paths with. This internship gave me an understanding of the grassroots level of development from a nonprofit perspective. One of the positive impacts from this internship is during the internship, we have these weekly check-ins with Andrea and with other internship students, depending on your destination. And this really helped me because I was able to listen into other students' challenges and highlight of the week, and sort of realize that some of their challenges were similar to mine since we were all doing it remotely. And also, we also did weekly check-ins with the third-party organizations. So in my case, it was with the Australia Chamber of Commerce, and which was really good because then it got me to link with the other interns from other universities as well. So it was a really good networking opportunity, and during the Australian Chamber of Commerce check-ins, they would usually have like a speaker from either a director from one of the hotels, the other students' organizations that they were interning with. And so it was quite interesting to sort of develop connections, because we got to ask if it's okay if we can add them on LinkedIn just to build up our portfolio. And also with this internship, we were able to get the host supervisor report, which is one of the assessments. The report would basically include the organization where you did your internship, would provide inputs on how well you did your work and if there's any weaknesses or strengths. And not only for your grade, it helped me sort of provide inputs that I could add into my resume, my CV, and it also helped me in a way kind of like see what was my weakness, what were my weaknesses, and what I could build on for my professional career. Right now, I'm still continuing working with Crossroads Foundation on a personal capacity and on a part-time basis. So yeah, that's it from me, Andrea. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions after. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. That was really interesting. And Crossroads is such a fantastic organization. Tristan, are you happy to go next and share your experience doing an internship with Korea?
Yeah, sure. I'll just see if I can. I'm not sure if I can share my screen. Will that kick you off? you're muted. I can't.
Yeah, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay, cool. Just a second. Sorry, guys. Awesome. Hopefully you can all see that on the screen. Cool. Well, my name's Tristan, and I did my internship remotely with Auscham Korea in T3 last year, and it was a really, really enjoyable experience for me, and I got a lot of both sort of social and professional benefit from it. When I started, one of the most interesting things for me was that I actually chose Korea because it was one of the few countries that I hadn't had a chance to visit. And unfortunately, while we couldn't go in person, it did give me a really good opportunity to sort of throw myself in the deep end in a new culture in a professional way as well. And some of the things that I found really interesting about my experience was that while the team that I was working with explicitly was fairly small, we had a massive board network, and that included lots of CEOs and directors from really large companies that I was really interested in, namely ANZ, Macquarie Bank, that sort of stuff. My kind of role in the team and organization was a project officer. So I sort of worked with my project manager to act out some of these projects that we were working on. And some of the things that I had to do was document management, client communication, basic event management, marketing material, and that sort of stuff, which was really cool for me because I've never really done any sort of digital design work, and I actually highlighted that as one of my biggest weaknesses. So that was pretty funny that they got me to do that straight from the get-go. But I left with a whole bunch of really cool skills. Some of the things projects that I worked on, there's a couple examples on here. So I worked on building webinars. I worked on building EDMs, or electronic direct mail, that went out as like, monthly newsletters to thousands of subscribers. And I got to see some really good insight into the way that the Auscham Korea and Auscham as a wider network sort of worked. I had a couple of specialist sort of projects that I worked on. In the top left, it's all kind of blurry, but I did a big report for Australia Made. So I had to take data from both English and Korean responses and sort of translate that into a professional document to be presented to both the client and the board. And that was a big step up from all the uni assignments I'd done, but something that I can now use in my my resume to sort of provide some really good justifications for some skills and some claims. Some of the highlights for me was actually, interestingly enough, the board meetings. I found that really interesting. Just sort of the language that they used. It's honestly not too different from movies and stuff, as silly as that sounds. I also got to network with some of the CEOs of ANZ and Macquarie. So I actually had one-on-one meetings with them, which I'd never expected to have. I got to pick their brain about some of those things. Some of the things that were really interesting to me, which again, I don't think I would have an opportunity to do that outside of this sort of internship. I saw a lot of skill and attribute improvements, and the assessment pieces sort of helped me stay on top of that and really sort of realize where I was improving and where I still needed to improve. I got a lot of extra confidence and self-confidence from this experience. I also got a lot of social capital through LinkedIn and stuff. My project manager was very pushy on me to, expand my network. And one thing as well that I just wanted to bring up briefly is I was initially a little disappointed that we couldn't go in country, but it really helped to improve my sort of digital adequacy and learning how to work from an online setting, which I think is something that's going to be very important going forward in a professional career. But yeah, I had a really good time. I got to do a big range of tasks, and I'm still in pretty close contact with the team. So yeah, I can only recommend it enough. But that might be enough from me now. I'm not sure how to stop sharing. Maybe
fantastic. Thanks so much, Tristan. And you managed to stop sharing. So thanks so much. And interestingly that you highlighted some of the benefits, getting feedback similar to what Augusti said as well. I just double check who I had next. Brittany, would you mind going next, sharing your experience?
Yes, sure. So the country that I interned in remotely was Japan, and the company that I worked for was Apex. So pretty much the company specialized in providing competitors information of the job market, salary levels, and hiring practices that provide business advice concerning industry processes to businesses that Apex provide information to their clients. Each day was quite different, but I did have set tasks. So the business was going through a restructuring process. So I was heavily involved in their reference documents and creating like a process and procedure of how they would follow through in promoting an employee, to what they would do on sick days and things like that. So very heavily in the employment relations sector and the work surrounding that. I also did other tasks related to data entry, which was quite interesting, and revenue tracking, which is something slightly different that I guess you don't get so much experience with at university. So you learn obviously the theories and stuff behind it, but this is actually putting it into action and seeing how it all interplays actually in the real world and in a business setting. So it's quite interesting. I was also involved in a lot of meetings with the company, and because of Japan's time difference is only 1 hour, I had constant correspondence with my advisors and colleagues, which is great because you will always have support around your network and the people and the jobs and tasks that you're assigned to. So I not only was able to get information from my advisor, I was also directed to other interns working in the company who worked there for like 8 months, and they would help explain tasks as well. So I got an array of different perspectives and different tasks from different people. So it's not just coming from, I guess, the CEO or the main advisor, it's coming from other department and other managers as well, and even down to an intern level as well. So that was quite good. My experience overall, I developed a lot of skills. So definitely online skills because it was remote. So I used a lot of Google services and the database with the company. And it was quite interesting of how easily the Japanese language was able to translate to English by just using digital platforms. So there was never really of an issue of communication. Communication was quite seamless. So that is always like obviously a concern for everyone, but it was honestly the easiest thing to communicate with other people and things like that. There was never an issue. Also, I was able to definitely gain experience within that sector that opened up to making global connections. So I was able to add all these people on LinkedIn, and I have email correspondence with them quite regularly. Even to this day, we emailed each other over like Christmas break, in the new year. Like, so you will always, if you put all into it, you will definitely get major benefits out of it as well. So yeah, that's about it really. My experience is just definitely just get involved and just be a part of anything that the company has to offer.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Brittany. And I think that's a good point. Someone else before said, just say yes to any opportunity the company provides to you. And I think that's a good point to make. Try to get the most out of the experience because it's quite unique. Thanks so much, Brittany. Thomas, would you like to share some of your experience doing a remote internship in the Southeast Asian context?
Yeah, I'd love to. So for me, is that up? Yeah. I did my internship for a company for Victorian government trade investment, but specifically the Invest Victoria arm, which, you know, is in charge of all the foreign direct investment into Victoria and Melbourne. And that was a very interesting experience. It gives you a lot of key aspects into that foreign direct investment. You know, like I've learned a lot about it in different courses and all that stuff. But, you know, when you get in there and learn about the regions and how they look at Australia, that's something that's going to have a lot of precedence in the future. As you know, Southeast Asia is only a growing source of foreign direct investment into Australia. So it was really awesome. It was an interesting internship working there. I got to meet some really good people. I actually worked with the head of the investment arm of it directly, which is like something that I didn't really expect. I kind of expected to be put under and pigeoned under someone else. My task was, you know, investigating the big companies within Southeast Asia and understanding how their relations are with Australia and with Victoria more broadly. And, you know, a big focus, especially with COVID, has been you know, that revolution towards the innovation. And that was something, and the technology that these big companies and that startups are really starting to look into. A lot of these things is, you know, a lot of the corporate language at the moment is, you know, we're going to have to innovate our way out of a lot of problems that are arising in the future. And that's something that, you know, I was kind of amongst and learning as I was there. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that innovation is something that we can't really stop. It's only going to get quicker coming out of COVID-19, thanks to all the stimulus packages the governments are willing to put in place. So you need to understand that. You need to understand where that innovation is heading. So I did some major investment mapping. You know, it's a different business environment to Western nations across the whole of Southeast Asia. There's 3 components that really showed that to me. It was those government SOEs, which if you don't understand, I guess it takes away that profit is the first way that a company succeeds. And that was something that, you know, isn't necessarily the case for SOEs. They don't need to operate in a way that always generates profit. And that was an interesting way of how like you could run a company. And it's, you know, something else that doesn't really happen in Western nations. Family conglomerates are huge in Southeast Asia. Vingroup, it owns 1/3 of all of the real estate in Vietnam. So, you know, inherently one of the biggest companies in the region. And then there's those sovereign wealth funds, specifically in Singapore, that have a lot of money that they can spend in the region and do quite actively. The second thing I did was, you know, that startup lead generation, looking more into that innovation side. And that was companies like these 3 that are all worth over $1 billion now, and a little over 2 years ago had under $100,000 market cap. So it was really interesting understanding those companies. So what I learned, you know, it was a really, really interesting. I got to really understand that Southeast Asian environment and that business environment in particular. That there's a major difference between how we conduct business in the East and West. And, you know, we're from a Western country, or, you know, we have Western values. So it's important that we look into the East and kind of understand how they conduct business, because it is different. And if you don't have that understanding, then you're not really going to understand how to conduct yourself or who you need to talk to, who you need to see. The other thing, you know, is that you get to, for me at least, with a lot of this major investor mapping, I really got fluent with LinkedIn, Crunchbase, which is the startup social media thing, Google advanced searches, and you really understand how to use those effectively. And that's something that I'm still using to this day in my new internship that I just started. So that's something that I really learned that was awesome. LinkedIn, it's been said by everyone, I think, as being important, but like I can't really recommend it enough as a way of like getting to understand who you're working with and getting those connections. I also had interviews with people at Austrade in Malaysia that really let me understand how Malaysia and Australia's relationship works in a trade relations perspective. So it wasn't just that foreign direct investment. And it was something that I really enjoyed. Yeah, but from a professional standpoint, all that I could be said is that I made a lot of connections in Southeast Asia. It's, you know, you've got to understand the big companies and what they're doing in the region, because the amount of money that they put into Australia is frankly obscene. You know, innovation's only going to get bigger. You know, Asia's focus is on innovation, and that can be summarized with a lot of things. But, you know, if you want to look at an example, there's that SoftBank Vision Fund that's really dominating that space, and it's really interesting to see how Asia's moving towards innovation. You also got to understand that the future economic powerhouses, and that was Vietnam and Indonesia, they're really coming into their own, and they will for this next 20 years. And if you can get that experience now and get a base of understanding, then I think like that's an awesome opportunity. And why wouldn't you take it? And that's, you know, that was my view on it. It's, you got to get in there, you got to do the time, because you're gaining insights, gaining an internship into a rapidly growing region. Thank you.
Fantastic, Thomas. Thanks so much for sharing your experience well. And I can see that there's heaps of questions coming in the chat. I've already noted some of them, so I will just go through some of them first. And then if I forget anyone, please remind me, or you can also ask a question, unmute yourself, or add something else. I'm just go some of the common questions I found. And if you have any questions for Brittany, August, Thomas, or Tristan, please address that directly to them as well. Is there a limit on students accepted? In theory, yes. In practical, always, if you pass the interview process, there would be a spot for you available. So I highly encourage you to apply, especially this year, we have around 90 placements available. So that's quite a large number. So if you fulfill the requirements and you have an appealing application and you do well in the interview, it's very likely that you will get accepted into the program. In regards to grants for students from New Zealand and Europe, you would fall under the category of international students. So there are grants available. It's not a New Colombo Plan grant, but we have internal Griffith grants available. For the remote global internship program, that's $500. For the in-country option, that's up to $1,300. The recording will be available of this session. So we will share that with everyone who registered for the session today. It's a 20 credit point elective, so that should be fine if it's either a listed or free choice elective. So if you're unsure if the program fits within your program, it's best to talk to your program director, and often they are quite flexible and would be able to accommodate if you have electives available. So I highly recommend you getting in touch with your program director if you're not sure what type of electives you have available. I mentioned you should have done at least 160 credit points in your degree, but I've seen one or two mentioning you only have maybe 140 or 150 by the end of trimester 2. I would then still highly recommend you to apply. That should be still possible for you to join the program. But if you, for example, have only finished 10 or 20 credit points, then you might be not ready, but you might want to consider the program next year. So in regards to the number per individual in destination, we have around 11 for China. Indonesia, we have around 9. For Malaysia, we have around 8. Korea, approximately 15. Hong Kong, 10. And around 22 for Japan. And that's only New Colombo Plan funding. And for Master in International students, that would be any country. The grants are flexible across destination. That's just an overview how many grants we have, New Colombo grants for destination. So as I mentioned earlier, we have significant grants for Japan this year, and also quite a lot for Korea and Hong Kong. I'm just going next through the question. Yeah, normally a GPA of 4.5 or higher, but if you, for example, have a lower GPA, but you have been improving this trimester and you feel you still have the skill set and want to join, put in an application as well. We always consider what you write in your cover letter in addition to the transcript. So don't feel excluded just because you haven't maybe made the 4.5 yet. If you're graduating in trimester 2, then you're not longer a student, so you won't be able to join the program. There's the option, for example, if you don't fulfill all your requirements by T2 and you would be willing to wait until your graduation, until the end of T3, and then you might be able to apply for the program if you have electives available. And that's similar if you already have all the credits finished, or maybe you have only 10 credit points available. The only way you could join the program if you over-enroll. We had students doing that in the past. For example, if you only have 10 credit points left, but the program is 20 credit points, you could over-enroll in your degree, being aware that there would be additional cost involved of that because you need to pay for 10 credit points more. If that's the case with you, please get in touch with me or also with your program director. We can give you more advice on that. And the cost of a 20 CP point is the same for this course than any other course you're paying for. I'm just going quickly through the list. So the country preferences, you would select them when you apply for the program. So you can select priority 1, 2, and 3. And normally we're trying to get you your first or second preference. And I just highlighted before in what countries we have more grants available. So that might be something you want to consider in your application as well. And it's also about how you argue why you prefer a destination because of your language skills or previous ties. That might be then an advantage, or more likely you get the destination than another one. And how it's determined what company you work in. That's a really good question. And so you will do an interview with the company, and then you see if you like the company, and also the company to see if they like you. So it's a two-way process. And it depends on your study area and what industry you want to do the internship. You actually have a lot of influence where you can do your internship as well. And if you're not selected for the destination you want, but others are available, we definitely consider that as well. So if you apply for an in-country placement and then that's not available because there's no travel, yes, you would get a refund, but also, as I mentioned, there will be also the remote option available that will go ahead independent on the decision of travel or not. And all the 4 students you would just heard about, they all did an experience remotely. So you could see that they still gained a lot of experience and added benefit out of the program. I'm just checking, have there been any specific questions for the students you heard from? Megan, is there any specific questions for the students before I move on with the rest of the list?
Not say any, Andrea, no.
All right, fantastic, thanks for that. So I'm just continuing here in the list. So for the application, everyone who registered for today's meeting or for an info session, I will send you the link to the application when the application will open, and they will open on 1st of April. So you will receive details how to apply for the program. So if you don't have any work experience, don't worry. This program is about getting your first work experience. While you maybe heard from some students who had already previous work experience, the large majority of students joining the programs do not have any prior work experience. And so it's not a disadvantage in the application process. So we actually encourage people who want to gain first work experience to join the program. So that was a really good question. So yeah, I think that question came quite a lot. So if you never have worked before, don't worry, that's the right place for you to be in, to get that experience in a safe environment so you can learn and get actually the first work experience. But on the other side, if you have already work experience before, there's still an added benefit doing a global internship. So if that's your first trimester as part of your master program, and you don't have a transcript yet, or maybe you studied at another university before and you just transferred to Griffith, still put in an application. You can always submit your transcript later on if you don't have one available at the moment. You could maybe indicate also in your application then what your current grades are if you have already finished assessment or 2. Unfortunately, Vietnam is currently not available, but I agree, it's a great destination. What makes a good application? That's really great. A good application is an application which kind of explains why you want to join the program, why you're interested in the destination you're selecting, and maybe linking how it fits to your studies or what industry you're most interested in doing your internship in. And when I send through the link to the application, I will also include some of the tips what to include in an application. But it's mainly about why you want to join the program, why the destination, and kind of what area or industry or how it links to your studies. I already mentioned a question in regards to work that won't impact your application or success in the program. That's not a consideration. What I'm looking for in the application is how it links to your studies and how motivated you are and the reasoning why you want to do it. It's not so much about how much work experience you had prior. It could also be that you have done some volunteering work, or maybe you're involved in an association at the university, or maybe you have just traveled before and the country sparked your interest. So that won't have a negative impact on your application. So for Australian mature age students, if you're not eligible for New Colombo Plan funding, then you would fall into the category of master and international students. So there will be still grants available, but it's just a different type of grant, and the value of the grants are slightly lower. So if you want a one-on-one meeting with me, you would have received an email about the info session. Just send an email to that email address, and then I can arrange a meeting with you if you have any specific questions you would like to ask. So yeah, normally this program runs in every trimester. Not every trimester, but every year in trimester 3. And the applications always start early in the year. So if you pick the remote internship, you don't need to be in Australia. We had last year, like Augusta, she's not placed in Australia, she's in Samoa. We had people who joined the program from Korea. We also had people in France. So you don't need to be in Australia to do the remote internship. So it doesn't matter where you're located. If it's possible to travel overseas in trimester 3, Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't answer this question. I'm hopeful, but at this stage, it's very uncertain. We would know more by mid-year, so by maybe June, July, hopefully. I think what's required in the cover letter, I mentioned that already. So why you want to join the program, why the destination, and how it fits to your studies or your career plans. So if you do a Master of Global Development, you would have heard from Auguste. She's studying the same program. She worked with an INGO in Hong Kong. We had other people doing an internship with the Green Growth Institute, also with think tanks. It really depends what your area of interest is, but we get quite a few applications either from the Master of Business Administration or the Master of Global Development. So we have quite a few students from that area. So there's a lot of different host organizations available, which are suitable for that. And we can always discuss as part of the interview process or your application, what area you're most interested in. And then I can provide a quite clear guidance if that's possible in the destination or not, or what might be a best destination. I'm not sure what that means, consider even if you're international. So yeah, you can be a national or international student. That doesn't make a difference for the program. So for example, what's your chance of getting a first preference? Especially if you speak a language, then often that's a good indicator that you would get your first preference. If you already have the language skills or you want to intensify that, that's often a good indication that it's likely you get your first preference. I think last year around 80 or 90% got their first preference. It does not matter how fast you apply as long as you apply by the 31st of May. So there's no priority who applies first. We have a kind of selection process, a point system, but it doesn't matter how fast you apply, as long as you apply by the 31st of May. So if you applied last year and you transfer to this year and you want to refer again for next year, that's fine as well. And thanks, Thomas, that you're heading off. Thanks for joining. Is it realistic to do some courses on the side? Yes, it is. For example, Thomas, he studied some other courses. Other people would have done part-time work. It really depends on your time management skills and how organized you are. So it's possible, but it really depends on your circumstances and what other subjects you want to study. I just see we're getting quite a few more questions. So if you do a master in Asian business, I think any destination is a great destination, depending on what your focus or country interest is. Fiji, it's likely to be included next year as well. Yes, we got multi-year funding for that, so it's likely to be available this year and the next 2 years. There's overall no limits in students, both master or domestic students. We accept everyone depending how many applications we got overall, and it more depends on your application and your skill set than the overall number. So normally, if you have the right skill sets, you fulfill the prerequisites, you will be accepted into the program. And I think, Megan, is there any other question? Is there anyone else who wanted to unmute their microphone and ask any questions to myself? Or I can see Brittany is still around and maybe Tristan as well and Auguste. Anyone who wants to unmute themselves or ask another question? Sorry for being rushed a bit through the questions, but we had so many questions coming in.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly ask, is the student who did the internship in Korea still here?
Tristan, yeah, he's still here, I hope. What was your question?
Because I want to work in Korea once I graduated, hopefully, and I was wondering if you think the internship helped you maybe get a foot ahead in working in Korea, because I know for foreigners, it's difficult to get a job that's a non-teaching job in Korea. So did you ever get to explore those kind of options with your internship?
Yeah, really good question. But yes, definitely really helped in a couple of different ways. I think one, for me with the Chamber of Commerce, they had a lot of companies that they directly dealt with as sponsors or provided services for, etc. So I was able to directly contact them, which meant that they knew who I was and I could get a good reference from the director of OzCham Korea. They also, have told me that if a position becomes available at the chamber once I graduate, that I would have a decent opportunity to apply and maybe be successful, because I've obviously worked for them before in that context. But there's always really good networking opportunities, and I think especially when you're relocating, it's a massive part of it's who you know instead of the grades you get. So definitely couldn't recommend it enough for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Josie, I think we had another student last year as well, and she has also the vision to go back and work in Korea. She has studied there before language, so and she also thought it was the added benefits because about the networks, understanding the workplaces and the culture. So I would highly recommend that, especially if you plan to live there in the future. I just thought that there were another few questions coming in, and I think we'll take these questions, and then unfortunately we will need to stop for today. So if you're currently located overseas in India, that's absolutely fine. You can still do the remote internship. If you want to find out what companies we have worked with in the different countries, if you go on the website, you should have the link because I added it in the, and then you can go on in-country experience destination, and then you can see in each destination what are some of the companies we have worked with in the past. Yeah, so the recording is available. So I think that was, yeah, and you would see my colleague put an email address there. So if you have any further questions, please contact globalgbswill@griffith.edu.au. So I hope I didn't forget any questions. So please get in touch if I haven't covered anything today. I will be sharing the recording in the next few days, but please feel free to reach out by email or have a look at the website. There's a lot of more testimonials, destination-specific information there as well. So thanks everyone for joining today. And thanks again, Tristan, Auguste, and also Thomas and Brittany for joining today. It was so great to hear from you as well. So thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.